What's going on, you guys? It's Gabby here. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and gabbing with me today. Listen, I made a mistake and got too much into God's business. Now let me tell you what I mean by that. I was so focused on how God's going to do it, in what way, the details of what He had going on for me, that I got myself in trouble. God just flat out told me, Gabby, why are you so focused on how I'm going to do it? All you need to be focusing on is that I told you I would do it. Whew. Long story short, He told me to get out of His business. Get out of the details of how and start focusing on what I've already said. I've given you a promise. I've told you I'm going to do it. The details to you are irrelevant. I got it under control. I realized that I'm a human. And I was acting out of human logic. So the word logic just really means a particular way of reasoning. And as humans, all of our brains have a human way of reasoning things. Human logic is really great for problem solving, getting things done. But human logic has no place in faith. Human logic wants to know the details. I want to know how. I want to know the ins and outs. I want to know the ups and downs. I want to know every single detail of this scenario. Logic requires knowing the details of how something will happen. Faith only requires knowing the details of who is going to make it happen. I began to study out who God says He is, studying out the details of the promises that He's already given me pertaining to my situation and pertaining to what I'm believing Him for. I want to ask you, are you focusing on the wrong details? Focus on who God is, what He said He'll do, who He's been. Focus on His track record. Those are the details that matter. Getting into God's business on how and when and why is going to do nothing but discourage our faith. The reality is, the details of how God is going to do it are none of our business. He's given us a promise, and what God promises, He will complete. If our belief in God doing what He said is contingent upon us knowing the details of how He will do it, it's really not faith. You begin to get in God's business when you need to know specific date and time. There's no faith in knowing date and time. Faith is saying, I don't know when, but I trust that what God promised, He will complete. Listen, it's time for us to remain confident in what God has said. Psalms 27 talks about remaining confident that we'll see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. That means here on planet Earth, in this lifetime, we have to remain confident that we will see God's blessings and God's goodness. I want to encourage you today to get out of God's business and stay out of the details. You don't need to know. I know sometimes we feel like we can prepare better if we know. We can worry less if we know. We can become happy when we know specifics. Specifics are irrelevant to what God has said. What He promised, He will complete. What He said He will do, He will do. Remain confident in what He said. Don't be nosy, because if you dig too deep into specifics, you actually might find yourself discouraged. But when you get into the Word of God and begin to dig specifically into who God says He is, you'll remain confident, you'll remain encouraged, and you'll feel better about not knowing specific details about how God will do it, because you'll trust that what He said, He will do. Trust me, I'm with you. God when? God how? I've been waiting a long time. What's really going on? Those are all details that we would like to know, and that's okay that we want to know. What I'm saying today is that we don't need to know the details in order to believe. The details that you should focus on are who God says He is and the promises that He said He will complete. Faith doesn't require the knowledge of how. All faith requires is the knowledge of who. Who is God? Who does He say He is? What are the promises that He said He would do for you? He's given you His word. He's told you that He will do it. Now it's time to forget about the details and focus on the promise. Because what God promised, He will complete. When we trust that God will do it, the details of how he will do it are really none of our business. One thing that I would encourage you to do today is go into the Word of God and see what it says about whatever you're believing him for. You can use Google, Siri. What does God say about blank? Attach that word to what you're believing him for. Begin to confess that day in and day out. Read it over and over and over. Constantly remind yourself of his promise so you no longer require the details of how he will do it. Stay out of God's business and get into the details of who he is, not how he will do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. Make sure to leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Follow me on social media, and I will see you in my next video.